them for that. But at that time, I invited the former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Agriculture, the now member for New England, to visit Tasmania. No strings attached, no politics, just come and see my farmers. Come and see how they're herding, talk to them. I think he completely underestimated what that would have meant for those farmers. And I said at the time, when he politely ignored actually my request, he didn't refuse it, he just ignored it. And I said at the time it's probably because the Liberal Party of Tasmania would not let a National Party member into the state. Now perhaps I've extended that invitation to the current Minister for Agriculture, and as we have one member of the National Party in Tasmania, and that's the only member of the National Party, Steve Martin, who has sold his soul to the government, that perhaps the new minister would come to my electorate and speak to farmers and just actually see what we do in a very agricultural rich part of the country. But through this cocktail of stress at that time, the government did offer some support via concessional loans and farm household assistance. Concessional loans were and remain problematic for farmers. They are not only very difficult and almost impossible to obtain, but they also set farmers up to fail by increasing their already climbing debt. Many, though, took up the challenge to try and receive the assistance, the allowance. That process in itself remains a nightmare with very lengthy delays. During the 2016 dairy crisis, a multitude of issues arose relating to the allowance. Farmers' cash flows were at crisis point, yet in many cases they faced very long delays to have their applications assessed. They were in desperate need for help and having to rely on food vouchers and other assistance from the community to try and make ends meet and put food on the table. The IT program processing the claims was not fit for purpose. My office had to intervene to help farmers in Circular Head get access to this assistance. Some were waiting up to 3 months for any help. And even after these families received their allowance, the problems continued. 12 months after receiving the allowance, they were cut off due to a so-called glitch in the system. Again, my office had to intervene. It should not come to that. There's enough stress in farming and trying to put food on your table and pay your bills when you're facing these sorts of crises, to have the government stuff up something as simple as an IT system, but this government has form on that. During the 2016 crisis, I wrote to the former Deputy Prime Minister raising concerns about the delays farmers were dealing with. While the Deputy Prime Minister responded, he acknowledged the problem, but to this day the government has done nothing about it. But it's not just this side of the House who knew accessing the allowance is an issue. Rural Business Tasmania, in the submission to the review of the Intergovernmental Agreement on National Drought Program Reform, make the following point, and I quote, "We believe the farm household allowance has potential to be a successful output of the IGA, but that the delivery mechanism needs further review. Issues over the life of the FHA include the telephone number 132316. The person phoning may wait up to an hour or longer to gain a helpline support person. The complexity of the application process, including the number of forms, delay in outcome, in some cases up to 10 weeks, and clarity of requests for further information can provide frustration." Rural Business Tasmania succinctly summed up the issue further in their submission under the question, what can be improved? Their answer, the farm household allowance concessional loan process. I trust this government is now taking notice. I also want to put on the parliamentary record my thanks to the teams at Rural Business Tasmania and Rural Alive and Well for the work they do in supporting farming families. There is no doubt many farming families would not have gotten through the trials and tribulations of the drought, the dairy crisis and the floods without their work. These organisations continue to do great work for our farmers. But when it comes to delivering the allowance to struggling farmers, Labor knows it can and must be done better. This government has gutted Centrelink, causing the delays to accessing the allowance. But Labor will rebuild Centrelink by employing an additional 1,200 properly trained full-time staff. And in my electorate, Labor has announced an additional 50 Department of Human Service officers will be employed to give more further support, and those will visit regional communities so that clients, such as our farmers, can get access to the support they need, and I commend Labor for doing that, and I trust that this government will follow suit, but we will sit here and wait a long time for that to happen. Thank you.
I thank the